There is a belief most people carry quietly through their entire financial lives. That wealth begins with money. That if you just had more capital to start with a better salary, an inheritance, an early investment, everything else would follow. It is a reasonable belief. It is also wrong. Money is not the first ingredient of wealth. Attention is. And until you understand that, truly understand it, not just intellectually acknowledge it, you will keep optimizing the wrong variable. Every year, millions of people ask themselves a version of the same question. How do I make more money? They open brokerage accounts, they chase yield, they scroll through financial content at midnight looking for the strategy that finally changes things. And still most of them end up in roughly the same place they started. Not because the information wasn't there, not because the markets weren't accessible, but because they were solving the wrong problem. The question that actually determines your financial trajectory is not, how do I make more money? It is, what am I choosing to pay attention to, and what is that choice quietly costing me? The answer to that question will tell you more about your financial future than any investment strategy ever could. Wealth is often visible at the end. Attention is visible at the beginning. Look closely at the origin story of any substantial fortune, any durable business, any great investment record, and you will find the same pattern. Long before the capital existed, before the returns were generated, before anyone else could see what was being built, there was a person directing unusually focused attention at something most people were ignoring. Warren Buffett, as a teenager, read every book in the Omaha Public Library with any connection to business or investing, some of them twice, not because it was assigned, not because someone was watching, but because his attention had a destination, and he protected that destination with a discipline most adults never develop. By 25, he had built something that cannot be purchased and cannot be inherited, a deep, coherent understanding of how businesses create and destroy value. That understanding became the foundation of the greatest investment track record in modern financial history. The money came later. The attention came first, always. Now here is where the story gets uncomfortable, because while you have been building your financial life-saving, investing, working, planning, something else has been happening simultaneously. You've been operating inside one of the most sophisticated attention capture systems ever engineered. Every technology platform, every algorithm, every notification, every feed designed to produce the precise psychological response that keeps you engaged for one more minute. Herbert Simon, Nobel Prize winner in economics, saw this coming decades before the smartphone existed. He wrote that a world rich in information creates a poverty of something else, the attention required to process it. He called it attention scarcity. What he couldn't have fully anticipated is the industrial scale at which that scarcity would eventually be monetized. Today, the largest companies on earth are not selling you content. They are selling your attention, packaged and delivered to advertisers at a price per hour. Think about that for a moment. Your attention is valuable enough that trillion-dollar businesses have been built around capturing it, which raises an uncomfortable question. If your attention is that valuable to them, what could it be worth to you? Every distraction has a price. The problem is that most distractions charge you in years instead of dollars. People worry about running out of money. Very few worry about running out of focused years. But focused years, years in which your cognitive energy is directed consistently at something that compounds, are finite. And unlike money, you cannot earn them back. You cannot refinance them. You cannot find them in a market correction. When a platform captures 2 hours of your attention per day, it is not simply taking time. It is redirecting the cognitive capital that could have been compounding for you into skill, into knowledge, into the kind of judgment that creates genuine financial advantage over a lifetime. That gap between what your attention could have built and what it actually produced never shows up in a bank statement, but it is, without question, the most expensive thing most people will ever pay. Most people understand compound interest as a financial concept. A dollar, invested at a reasonable return, left untouched, grows exponentially. The gains from early periods become the principal of later ones. The curve bends upward. Attention compounds in exactly the same way. When you spend focused time building depth in a domain, investing, business analysis, a technical skill, an understanding of an industry, the knowledge doesn't simply accumulate, it interconnects. A concept you learned in year 1 begins sharpening a decision you face in year 7. A pattern you recognized in one market reveals itself in another. Charlie Munger spent decades building what he called a latticework of mental models, a connected architecture of knowledge drawn from psychology, economics, history, biology, and physics, not consumed passively, constructed deliberately. each idea reinforcing every other idea. Munger didn't just know more. He had built a compound system, and the inputs to that system were not money. They were hours, sustained, protected, directed hours of attention invested the way most people never think to invest anything. Here is the principle underneath this. Attention is the gatekeeper standing in front of every valuable outcome. Skill does not appear without sustained attention. Knowledge does not compound without consistent attention. Judgment does not mature without reflective attention. And wealth, the kind that is built rather than received, does not exist without attention allocated over time to the right things. Now stop for a moment. Think about the last 5 years. Not the money you earned, the attention you spent. Where did it actually go? Not where you intended it to go, but where it went in practice, hour by hour, day by day. What were you building? What was building on you? Because this is the audit that most people never conduct, the financial review they never schedule. And the absence of it is not neutral. Every year that passes without a clear answer is a year in which someone else's algorithm answers it for you. The difference between successful people and unsuccessful people is rarely one decision. It is usually thousands of repeated directions of attention, small, quiet, daily choices about what to read, what to study, what to think about, what to leave alone, individually invisible. Collectively, the architecture of an entire life. Consider two people, call them Marcus and Daniel. Same city, same age, similar income. Both begin investing in their early 30s. Marcus treats his financial life as a series of financial tasks. He contributes to his account. He checks the market when something dramatic happens. Between those moments, his attention follows the path of least resistance entertainment, social feeds, the ambient noise of everyday life. He is not careless. He is simply unintentional. Daniel treats his financial life as a field of study. He reads about business models, economic history, and how value is actually created and destroyed in markets, not obsessively, but consistently. He builds context across years. He begins to recognize patterns. He learns to distinguish between companies with durable competitive advantages and those with only the appearance of strength. After a decade, both have invested similar amounts of capital. But Daniel's decisions reflect something Marcus's don't, a coherent, compounding judgment about quality. He holds through volatility because he understands what he owns. He recognizes opportunity in downturns that look like disasters to the uninformed. He avoids the frauds and fads that quietly drain portfolios built on incomplete understanding. The difference was not intelligence. It was not access. It was not effort in the conventional sense. It was the consistent, protected direction of attention towards something worth understanding. Marcus and Daniel are not special cases. They are patterns, repeated across millions of financial trajectories, across every generation, and the variable that separates them is the one we almost never measure. There is a concept in economics called opportunity cost. The true cost of any choice is not what you paid. It is what you forfeited by not choosing something else. When you spend an evening in passive consumption, the opportunity cost is not just the hours. It is the book you didn't read, the one that might have introduced a mental model that permanently changed how you evaluate a business. It is the thinking you didn't do, the slow, quiet kind that separates reactive decisions from strategic ones. It is the depth you didn't build. Depth that, once built, creates an informational advantage that is both real and durable. Phil Knight understood this long before Nike was Nike. When he was importing running shoes out of the trunk of his car, he was relentlessly attentive to questions that had no immediate commercial return. How do industries scale? How do serious athletes think about performance equipment? What does the future of athletic culture actually look like? That quality of attention, patient, strategic, forward-looking, was the engine before any capital existed. The business followed the attention. It always does. Most people think wealth is built through what they do. Wealth is often built through what they stop doing, the noise they stop following, the distractions they stop funding with their most irreplaceable hours. Modern culture has built a strange mythology around busyness. We treat it as evidence of ambition, a signal that we are serious, engaged, productive. But busyness and focus are not the same thing. For most people, they are opposites. Busyness is the state of constant, fragmented, low-level attention, responding, reacting, managing. It feels like progress because it never stops, consuming. But the work that creates genuine long-term value, deep learning, careful analysis, Strategic judgment, creative synthesis cannot happen in a fragmented mind. Neuroscience has been precise about this. The prefrontal cortex, the seat of long-term reasoning, complex decision-making, and the integration of knowledge requires sustained, undistracted engagement to function at its capacity. Every task switch carries what researchers call attention residue, a cognitive tax that compounds throughout the day, silently degrading the quality of every decision that follows. The investors who have generated the most durable long-term returns are not, as a class, people who process the most information. They are people who process the right information deeply, slowly, without fragmentation, and then had the discipline to act on it with patience and conviction. Peter Lynch built one of the greatest investment records of the 20th century on a principle that sounds almost too simple: invest in what you know. But the real principle underneath it is this: if you direct careful, sustained attention to an industry, a company, or a market dynamic, more attention than most people are willing to maintain, you will, over time, know things that others don't see. You will recognize what they miss. And in markets, as in business, that kind of accumulated attentional edge is one of the most powerful advantages available to any investor. That is not luck. That is compound attention applied with discipline. Let us be precise about what attention determines, because the full scope of it is rarely acknowledged. Your attention determines the skills you acquire. Every high-leverage skill, the kind that creates durable financial and professional advantage, is built through thousands of hours of focused engagement, not passive exposure. Deliberate construction. The person who sustains attention on a discipline long enough to reach genuine depth has built something that cannot be quickly replicated and cannot be taken away. Your attention determines the knowledge you accumulate. Knowledge, the architecture of connected understanding, not data, that allows you to see relationships, identify patterns, and anticipate consequences before they arrive. That architecture is assembled gradually and destroyed by fragmentation. It is one of the most valuable structures a mind can hold. Your attention determines the opportunities you recognize. Opportunities almost never announce themselves. They emerge as subtle patterns, early signals, quiet incongruities in the flow of information. The person whose attention has been cultivated in a relevant domain can see them. Everyone else looks at the same information and sees only noise. Your attention determines the quality of your judgment. And judgment, the capacity to make sound decisions under genuine uncertainty, is not an innate trait. It is a developed one, built through sustained exposure to high-quality thinking, refined through experience, and deepened through the kind of reflection that only happens in stillness. When you hold all of this together, the picture becomes clear. Your real portfolio is not the collection of assets in your brokerage account. Your real portfolio is your skills, your knowledge, your judgment, your network, and the mental models you have constructed to navigate a complex and uncertain world. Every element of that portfolio was built or left unbuilt by where you directed your attention. Jeff Bezos has said that the best decisions he ever made, the ones that produced the most significant long-term value, were not made quickly. By being willing to hold a question in mind long enough, they were made for genuine clarity to emerge, to resist the pressure of speed and let the slow work of serious thinking complete itself. That is a description of protected attention, applied to the right problems, sustained across years. The people who build extraordinary outcomes in investing, in business, in any field governed by compounding returns, they are not, on average, dramatically more intelligent than their peers. They are not dramatically more lucky. They are dramatically more deliberate about what they allow to occupy their minds. They have understood something that most people understand only in retrospect, if at all, that the quality of a life is shaped not by its dramatic moments, but by the quiet, daily accumulation of where attention was placed. Your future is not built by what captures your attention. It is built by what deserves your attention, and perhaps that is the most important financial lesson of all. You are not merely managing money. You are managing the source from which money, skill, opportunity, judgment, and freedom are created. Your attention, protect it, direct it, invest it wisely, because the quality of your future will be determined largely by what you repeatedly pay attention to today. And if you want to understand how the wealthiest investors and business builders use patience, ownership, and long-term thinking to create extraordinary results, watch the next video now. Subscribe to The Equity Mind for deeper insights into wealth creation, investing, ownership, and financial intelligence.